now?
Now it's going.
Ah, there we go. All right, I'm not gonna worry about editing that, because I know this audience. All right, so what I wanna kind of dissect here is the dashboard. And as we've talked about before, this is for the VMS team. So this is for the staff elements office. When the staff element office, whoever's running the staff element side of the business for whichever client relationship and all the staffing companies and candidates that are associated with it, this is going to be the dashboard they see. And this is what's critically important about this is where anybody who's working for staff elements, when they log in, this is the first page that they see. So it's login, dashboard. And the dashboard needs to have they're essentially, for lack of better definition, they're hot links to other areas of the database. All right, so the first thing that I have listed here is new job orders and requirements, okay? So inside of this box, if you will, is going to demonstrate anything new that are tied to requirements that the client has. If sometime between whatever time yesterday you logged out and you logged in this morning, any new requirements that have been posted in the system for basically new job orders for us to make live in the system. Because the way the system should work is the client puts in a job order, and our job is to make sure that it's been approved by whomever the hierarchy is as it relates to the client. So for instance, like at our client BRC, we may have Tracy Ogle is the Vice President of Texas Operations. All job orders that are non-clinical have to go through her. So we want to make sure that when they put a new requirement in the system, that Tracy Ogle has approved it. And then when it's in this box and we look at it and we click on the new rec 1 2 3 4 5, rec 1 2 3 4 5, we click on it, we open it, make sure everything's good, then we submit it to the rest of the vendor community. Okay, so then it would leave our dashboard or our new requirement portion of the dashboard. When you click on it and open it, it's going to show that it's been approved or pending approval status. Nothing happens until it's been approved, but once it's been approved, then our office then sends it out. When we click the button to send to vendor community, it goes out as a live job order to the vendor community. All right. The next section right here is interview requests. So this box is going to highlight any new interviews that have come through. And as you can see, these all have little scroll wheels inside of it. So this obviously isn't to scale, but inside of this box is going to have active links to interview requests that's going to be associated with a job order number, right? So this is going to be like for requirement 1 2 3 4 5, J Smith, 1031. So this could be a sample of what that link looks like inside of this box. You click on it, it opens up the page that shows us where this candidate has been requested by the hiring manager to interview, and then you take the next steps of action there. And the next steps would be to notify staffing company notifies candidate, and the interview process takes place, right? And we'll go into those details later, but this is just looking at what you're going to see as an operator on the dashboard. Make sense?
Yep.
Steve, do you have something?
No, I almost did, but you cleared it up.
Okay, so then over here is going to be candidate submittals. So what's important about this to understand and what we're going to see here, you may see that J Smith against requirement 1 2 3 4, 5 is newly submitted, okay? And newly submitted on 10/24, right? So a candidate that's been submitted, remember that we've talked about like how a candidate is going to have a weight and measurement as it relates to their skill set. So let's talk about something really simple, like a nurse. And we're looking for a pediatric nurse. If she's worked as a pediatric nurse for 2 years, she's going to meet 100% of the requirement as a pediatric nurse. Then as it drills down a little bit deeper, you've got a pediatric nurse that's worked in a NICU or in ICU, or been a pediatric nurse out in labor and delivery, a pediatric nurse only working in a doctor's office, right? So you see the variations of a pediatric nurse, right? Pediatric surgery, pediatric oncology. So if our client's looking for a pediatric nurse that's worked a NICU, we want somebody as close to 100% on that, right? So the weight and measurement of this candidate is going to be determined if they get submitted on to the hiring manager when we click on this to see that they match at least greater than the 75th percentile as our minimum requirement for a candidate to be submitted to the hiring manager, right? And we've talked about that before in previous videos, where a candidate has to be, equal to or greater than 75%, but that limitation can be set by the client. The client can say, I need 100% of what I'm looking for, which means anybody submitted that has less than what they're looking for gets rejected. And the system is going to have that weight and measure that's what's showing up in that submittal box, right? People that are matching the requirement, that are at the top of the heap, that need to be submitted against this requirement, okay? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And again, drilling down into the submittal section of the system, we can discuss, at a later date. This box right here these are messages that are intra-system messages that are sent from either hiring manager to our office, to a staffing company to our office, and would be color-coded appropriately, right? So we'll assign a color to client, we'll assign a color to intra-office, right? And then we'll assign a color to client. So client, staffing company, and our team would be associated with the communications inside here, right? Like for instance, rather than sending an email, they can communicate here saying, I really need focus and attention put to this requirement, and we can send a note out system-wide to all of our staffing suppliers that we need somebody, hey guys, we need some attention on this requirement. We have a significant need for a new hire in this location, somebody quit or laid off or went on maternity leave or what have you. This box here, I want to represent daily or weekly calendar items. So these are action items inside of your particular day that's associated with everything that we're looking at here, right? So if you've got an interview that is taking place that day, or an interview that's been requested, you can click on it and see where we're at in that life cycle. You can see where that interview's at. You can follow up with the hiring manager. Hey, you've got an interview at 11 o'clock. Just wanted to remind you, are you ready for that interview? Whatever the process may be as it relates to your activity and that hiring manager, or your activity in that interview, your activity in the staffing company, this should be action items that demonstrate that, okay? All right, so understanding that inside of this box, any of the items that are inside of these boxes, again, they're scrollable and they're all hyperlinked to other sections of the system. So if you click on one of the requirements that are on the dashboard link, it's going to take you to whichever one that you're looking at inside of the system, okay? So if you're going to click on R1, 2, 3, 4, 5, click on this, it opens up that requirement in another page or another tab, so on and so forth. So this is fairly self-explanatory, you know, as far as where you go from here, but you're always returning back to the dashboard. So this is where we're working as a vendor management office each and every day for as far as how the workflow is processed, and it's essentially the funnel, if you will, for all the work that's coming to you. So this is your daily hot activity items, and these are each hot items that are taking place inside of your day-to-day activity. Questions? No? All right, that's all I've got for the dashboard. But what I want everyone to take from this, beyond just this piece of it, this is just for the VMS office. We'll have a dashboard that is identical to this for each login, okay? So when a staffing company logs in, they're gonna see what is specific to that staffing company, okay? They're gonna see their requirements that have any activity that's taking place on them. They'll have their interview request box. They'll have any messages within their team or from the VMS office, or right here, this candidate submittal list. These are all the most recent submittals that are pending, okay? They'll also have action items here. If they have a candidate interviewing, all of this is gonna show up in this active items section of the page. And then, yes, sir?
Let's pretend I work for that staffing company,
Yes, sir.
and I go to my own computer in the morning and I log on to that. Is it individualized enough to show me just
Yes.
stuff that pertains to me?
Yes, okay, and let's talk about that for a quick second. So you've got the VMS company, you're gonna have the staffing company, you're gonna have the client, and all of them are gonna be working respectively within this system, all right? And, you know, obviously they all work together for the common good, which is placing candidates. And all of them have their own respective dashboards. Now, when you as recruiter log in from Joe's staffing company, right? Your dashboard is gonna be set up by whoever your super user is at your office, okay? So let's just assume that you have 3 recruiters in your office that are all gonna work inside of Staff Elements. If you're the super user assigned to that office, you're gonna be able to assign requirements to that guy or to that guy, right? So all 3 of you, so that you can divvy it up. Now, you don't have to be that granular if you don't wanna be. You can make it to where everybody has their own login, but when they log in, they can work on everything.
They can all see the same dashboard.
Sure, everybody could see the exact same dashboard. Now, what would make the most sense, if you want to keep track of activity in your office, which is the goal here, you want to be able to have as much granular information as you can, because I can see how productive Austin is, or how productive Steven is, or how productive anybody else in the office is. Whomever the account is assigned to at any particular staffing company can assign requirements, okay? So their dashboard, the super user in any given company, their dashboard can show all activity for that company, okay? When you log in as just a user at that company, after the super user or admin for your company has assigned you responsibilities and a login, when you log in, you just see your activity. Okay. So you got a new guy over here, you assign him, 5 jobs. You got a guy that's been working there for 10 years, you assign him 15 jobs, okay? And then at the client level, this is just specific to the hiring manager, right? So you're gonna have a hierarchy very similar to the staffing company, right? You're gonna have the super user, which is senior management, and they're going to give responsibilities down to their hiring managers. So let's talk about like the structure that we know, like at our client BRC, right? You may have a hiring manager for clinical, right? So all your nurses, CMAs, LVNs, RNs, CMAs that like Debbie may hire. So Debbie's one of these hiring managers, right? She doesn't hire anybody in facilities. She doesn't hire a counselor, right? And then you have a counselor. So the counselor is here. And then you have, operations. Then you'll have another one for HR. You'll have another one for accounting. So each of them are going to have a hiring manager that is over the jobs that are in the system for them, right? So take, for instance, you have Steve Murdoch, who's the CFO. He's going to be the supervisor over everything in accounting, right? He has to check off on every new hire. Right now, for instance, and this is a big problem at BRC, they have no idea who's being hired. Like Steve Murdoch, the CFO, sends me an email. He's like, "Man, I saw you guys. We had like 9 hires this month." I'm like, "Yeah, well, and?" He's like, "We didn't know our payroll was going to go up by 9 people." So it's not a problem because they've all had their budgets approved for these, but sometimes it's a shock when all of a sudden you got 9 new hires and you didn't know they were coming. So it's going to create kind of that reverse funnel, right? So the funnel is now going this way, and it's going to become more myopic for the supervisors or the senior management team. So Steve Murdoch, who's the CFO of the company, gives hiring manager rights to his controller and to his director of revenue cycle, and then they build out the team beneath them, right? But the moment that hiring manager opens up a job order in the system, opens up a new requirement, the new requirement gets sent out to the staffing companies, right? Because the VMS office approves it, so it goes out to all the staffing companies. When a candidate comes back through, all of the activity for that candidate is only taking place under the hiring manager's side, right? Senior management doesn't give a shit. What they care about is when somebody new is being added to payroll, because that's what affects the budgets, right? So the hiring manager does everything in the system necessary to get them all the way through the interview process. They can add the senior manager at any time into the interview process that they want to, but ultimately when the decision is made for the new hire, that's when a note goes to the senior manager if it's necessary for approval, okay? Now, if the senior manager says, "Hey, my controller can make this decision," then they can turn that access on. But if they want to approve everything from this person, they can change the access. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. What questions, if any, about this hierarchy and how the dashboard is essentially disseminated? So you're going to have a dashboard for the Staff Elements company office, and it's going to see the activity of all of the client's information, right? So the VMS office, let's say we have 2 clients that we're providing services for, they're not all going to be in the same login, right? So you'll log in for the BRC client side, and let's say you have American Airlines as a client, you'll log into the American Airlines. And I think perhaps you could even in this dashboard, we could identify, we could have an other client tab, so we could fast switch from this dashboard of client number 1 to dashboard of client number 2. But I'll talk to the team about that. So team, pay attention. So because we're going to eventually, I'd like to see that every client that we're currently doing business with, from the Tonti Properties to Rockwell, it costs them nothing to use it. So why not put this in there as your candidate management tool? Should be simple enough, right? Now, what's the upside to us if they do that? As a Staff Elements, we get a piece of every one of the candidates that are placed, across the entire platform. But anyway, so you're gonna have a dashboard for the VMS, for the vendor management system office. You're gonna have a dashboard for the staffing company that's only gonna be specific to requirements that have been released to that staffing company. And then you're gonna have a dashboard for the client. Now, in the same respect for the staffing company as I did with the VMS, having this little hot switch down here where you could have, let's just call it client 1, client 2, client 3. Let's say I'm a staffing company and I'm working to provide staffing for 3 different staff element clients. I think it would be a great feature to be able to switch from BRC to American Leather to American Airlines, right? Because all of my information should be shared across my entire staff elements login, right? All of my candidate pool, all of my data is the same for all of those clients. But the pool of candidates which drives this should be in the same repository, right? So if I look up a candidate, that's a flight engineer, he's gonna be in the master database of my login, right? But I may not ever submit a flight engineer to BRC recovery. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But I should have the ability to quick access things that are taking place in my other dashboards with my other clients, instead of logging out and logging into a whole nother portal, right?
Absolutely.
So again, I'll talk with the team about that. So, any questions? All right, well, I'll get this one loaded up for the team and we'll take next steps. Is that still recording?